Before discussing the purpose of your secondary character, let's understand just what a secondary character is. As the name signifies, your secondary character is second only to your main character, which means it's the second most important character that you have. Well, yes and no. You see, any given story that you may write will tend to contain several secondary characters, some more important than others. A few might be considered third most important, some might be considered fourth most important, and depending on how many secondary characters you have, some might be considered 20th or even less important. Then why call them secondary characters, you may ask? Time for another of my little tales. A young woman sits at her desk and smiles as she completes her latest letter. It is 1949, and for the last year she has been corresponding with a young man who she has never met. They are pen pals. They have become quite attached to each other over the last months and have finally decided to meet. During that time, they have found that they have a lot in common. They both have parents that have passed away. Both are estranged from the rest of their families, including their siblings, and both have had previous relationships where the person they were dating had intentions other than the romantic kind. You see, they each came from money. And with both having past relationships that always led to trying to take their inheritance from them, they each decided to try getting to know someone without letting them know of their wealth. Hence the reason for their year-long pen pal relationship. To make sure their true identities were not revealed until they were sure the other wasn't interested in wealth but in love, they had each been using fake names. She referred to herself as Stacy, and he referred to himself as Jake. They also got themselves fake addresses for the time when they might invite the other over for a visit. They even faked the place where they grew up and how their family came into money in case the other tried to do research to try and discover if they had any hidden wealth. A week after receiving the latest letter, Jake boarded a plane and traveled to the city where Stacy said she was living. He got himself a hotel room and waited anxiously for the next day when he would visit Stacy at her little apartment a few blocks away. Stacy was beyond excited at the prospect of finally meeting the man she had come to love with all her heart. Jake was also excited. He felt that he had finally met a woman that was interested in him and not what wealth he might possess. The little apartment that Stacy had rented was plain and would ensure that Jake wouldn't suspect that she wasn't a struggling waitress at a local restaurant instead of the heir to great wealth. They had agreed to meet at her apartment for lunch. Although she had never really cooked before, she was willing to try. When Stacy heard the knock at the door, she knew it was him. With a smile on her face, she hurried to her apartment door and opened it. She then stared at Jake standing in the hallway with a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a huge smile on his face. Suddenly, Jake dropped the flowers he was holding. At the same moment, the smile dropped from his face. Stacy's smiling face was also replaced with one of shock. Today, I'll talk about the importance of the secondary character. And at the end of this video, I'll tell you why Jake and Stacy had such a reaction to their first meeting. The term secondary also means additional, accessory, lesser, inferior, etc. And since it wouldn't make sense to give a title to each and every character, it's just more convenient to classify them under the heading secondary. I guess it just sounds better than the title lesser or inferior. But there's another reason for using the name secondary. In one of my earlier videos, I talked about who your second most important character is, your antagonist. Yes, your antagonist is grouped with but sits at the top of all the other secondary characters. And again, depending on how many secondary characters you have in your story, your antagonist could sit at the top of a very long list. It's important to understand that each of your other secondary characters range in importance from as significant as almost rivaling your antagonist to one so insignificant in stature, he or she can almost be considered a minor character. I'll go into depth about the importance of your minor characters in an upcoming video. Remember, like all the characters in your story, your secondary characters have one job and one job only, and that is to move your story in a forward direction. And they do this by aiding your protagonist in some positive way. They don't necessarily attempt to aid positively, especially your antagonist, but the result ends up being a positive one. They really have no other purpose. So if they're not doing the job they are intended for, then they're just taking up valuable space and should be eliminated. There's no room in your story for idle characters that don't have a purpose. Some might even seem to take on the role of the antagonist by offering opposition, which in turn, like I just mentioned, aids your protagonist. This is fine, providing that these secondary characters are not actually doing a better job than your main antagonist, or you will have positional issues. I'll explain in more detail what I mean by positional. You need to understand that it is okay and sometimes even common to have more than one antagonist in your story. The technical term for this second antagonist is a contagonist. Just as long as you remain clear on who is responsible for the main conflict and who is responsible for the minor everyday conflicts. Your reader needs to have a clear understanding of who's who to be able to follow the story without having to stop and try to figure out who's doing what job. I've probably worried you a little. You might be thinking that you're not even sure which is which. Don't worry. Secondary characters are easy to recognize. They are there for the majority of your story. They are there to interact closely with your protagonist and are also affected by the actions of your antagonist. Watch any movie with a group of friends who go camping together, or find themselves in a haunted house together, or a family get together, or even a group of bank robbers. The way these stories are set up, in each of them, one of the characters is the protagonist. The others in the group are regular secondary characters. Example 1. The protagonist is hesitant about going camping with her 5 friends because the last time she went, someone tried to kill her. The 5 friends are the secondary characters. The antagonist is most likely, I don't know, the groundskeeper or an uninvited friend. Example 2. The protagonist warns her 7 friends about going into the haunted house, but eventually goes along to try to keep them out of trouble. The 7 friends are the secondary characters. An evil spirit that dwells inside the house or a jealous boyfriend might be the antagonist. Example 3. The protagonist puts together a group of 9 criminals to rob an impenetrable bank vault. The 9 criminals are the secondary characters. One of them, tired of not being taken seriously, is also the antagonist. Example 4. The protagonist has decided to invite her 5 sisters over for a sibling get-together. The 5 siblings are the secondary characters. This is a unique opportunity for the 5 siblings to be the antagonists. One of them is the main antagonist. It's time for one of my example stories. I'll use you in this example. You work at a highly competitive law firm. One of the senior partners has just retired. Because of this, one of the vice presidents have been given that position. There is now a vice president's office left vacant. You, along with two other qualified people, are now in a position to be offered that office. Since the position could go to any one of the three of you, you will all have to show your worth to have that edge over the other two candidates. Since this story is about you, you are the protagonist. Your two work colleagues are secondary characters. Actually, they're not just regular secondary characters, they are also antagonists. The only one that is just as determined to get the vice president's position as you, we will call Angela, and is the main antagonist. The other antagonist, who we will call Bob, offers less of a challenge to you because he doesn't have the determination it takes to win such a coveted position. A few of the other people who work at the firm are also secondary characters. They are the chief financial officer, that the three of you report to on a daily basis, your best friend who works in the cubicle across from yours, the sexy assistant that has all the men drooling over her, and the shy girl who is more than qualified to become vice president but has no people skills or ambition. You do everything right and are liked by everyone, but because you don't want to step out of line and be frowned upon by the executives, you do what is expected of you and remain within your comfort zone. Angela has a more of a backstabbing personality who will stop at nothing to get what she wants. When she sees that you are catching the attention of the executives, she goes to work on making you look bad. It works. And now the favorable attention is on her. Bob is what you would call a yes man. He is sneaky and often takes credit for others' accomplishments. The report that put him in the running was one that he stole from the shy girl. He has convinced her to give him another report, which he then uses to gain more favor with the executives. You now realize that if you are ever able to move into that new office, you will have to step out of your comfort zone and confront Angela head on. Knowing that once Bob is discovered as a plagiarizer, your work will also come under scrutiny. So you go to great lengths to polish your work so there is no doubt as to whose it is. With Bob soon to be found out, Angela is the only person standing in your way. You know the lengths she will go to secure the position, and to beat her at her own game, you need to do more than you are used to doing. So, you decide to be what you need to be. You meet her head on and show the executives that you are exactly what they are looking for in a vice president. In the end, your conflict with Angela has allowed you to realize a new side of yourself and eventually won you the new office. The reason Angela and Bob were both antagonists in your story is because they offered direct conflict. None of the other secondary characters did. If your best friend decided to go for the position or simply tried to stop you from getting it so you and him could, continue hanging out together, providing he offered you enough opposition, he too would be a antagonist. Secondary characters are a vital component to any story. They are what drives the story forward and prevents it from becoming stagnant. In other words, they prevent your story from going absolutely nowhere. Without your secondary characters, whether it is 1 or 20, your story would need to rely on your protagonist to not only push himself forward, but provide his own conflict. And apart from those extremely rare occasions where this is done, it is unlikely that you will be able to deliver a believable story that your readers can relate to without them. And now I'll continue telling you the story that I call Jake and Stacy. Jake stood there in the doorway and stared without blinking with a look of astonishment on his face. Stacy stared back, unable to believe what she was seeing. They stood this way, doing nothing more than staring at each other without uttering a sound. Then finally, Jake spoke. With a look that had dissolved into humiliation, he said in a near whisper, "Hello, sister." Thanks for watching, and if you found anything that I said beneficial to you in any way, hit that subscribe button because you never know. My next video might just be helpful too.